Hey there, this is Antonia with City Barbecue Wedding and Event Catering, and I have some exciting news. We have officially launched our 2026 Win a Wedding contest. One lucky couple will win up to $5,000 worth of catering for their wedding event. Just go to citybbqwinawedding.com. There you will find rules, eligibility, and a place to tell us about your love story for your chance to win a fully catered wedding reception. This contest will run between March 2nd and May 1st, and the winner will be selected on May 25th. If you're ready to say I do with barbecue, put in your entry today.
Hello, and welcome to Season 4 of the Wedding Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Burton, wedding concierge and owner of Simply Love Studio, coming to you from the heart of Central Kentucky. Around here, weddings are more than a single day. They're about family tradition, a little bit of chaos, and a whole lot of love. And my job is to help you navigate all of that with clarity and confidence while staying on budget. At Simply Love Studio, I help couples plan their weddings for free, connecting you with the right vendors, realistic timelines, and thoughtful guidance so that you can enjoy the process. This season, we're diving deeper into real connections, what works, what doesn't, and how to plan a wedding that truly feels like you. Whether you're newly engaged, deep in planning, or just love a good behind-the-scenes wedding story, you're in the right place. One of the things that I wanted to do for Season 4 is bring in some different business owners to talk about things that maybe are not traditionally thought of when you are planning your wedding. And one of those is combining your households or maybe upgrading some things in your house from your registry. So I have brought Liz in from PDR Interiors to share some great ideas today about how we can do that no matter what stage of life you are in. Liz, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm excited to talk about this because it's different than my normal everyday, but it is so very adjacent and applicable. So I'm ready to get into it.
And I always talk anytime somebody comes to me, like an intern, and they talk about, doing things now and how they want it to benefit them as they get older. My relationship with Liz is kind of one of those things. I go back to like 2006, 2007, right when I graduated college. Liz was one of the first people that I met at Lexington Young Professionals. And when she told me what she did, I was like, your job must be so cool, or it must be so fun. And that is always the response that I get as well, because it does look fun on the outside. The pictures on social media look, pretty, but people don't always realize the work that goes on behind the scenes. And over time, you have gone from a company to owning your own company. And you also kind of have niched yourself as well and really gained popularity in your industry. I want you to share a little bit about your business and kind of where you're at now in the interior world.
Yeah, sure. You're right. It has been quite an evolution and a journey. So when I first started PDR Interiors, it was called Polka Dots and Rosebuds Interiors. I felt like calling it Liz Toombs Interiors was boring. I wasn't into it. Saw a piece of fabric that inspired me, ran with it. And then at that time, I was just getting started. You talked about I had worked for another company. It was a franchised business that ended up closing as a result of the recession. Like the housing market was bad. So I had started this business, Polka Dots and Rosebuds, in 2009, the spring, and was just kind of continuing the work I had been doing at the previous company, working with a lot of residential customers, some what I would call light commercial, like attorneys' offices, those types of things, and just working with people that I had met through networking. You talked about LIPA. And then I was asked by a fraternity at the University of Kentucky, like, hey, will you help us make our house look better? Like, we're not competitive on campus. We're trying to raise money to build a new house, but we're not ready for that yet. And we just need a little zhuzh, a little sprucing up. So I was like, sure, young entrepreneur, you say yes to everything and just see what sticks. And I liked it. It was a really positive experience. And then a sorority on campus called and was like, hey, we know you helped them. Would you help us? And so again, sure. And then at that point, I started to realize what was out there in terms of Greek housing and the ways in which that I could help these organizations. And they asked me to start traveling for them. So started trying to figure out what that was like, because at the time, I don't feel like it was very common or popular to hire a designer from a different city or state than where you lived. And so trying to figure that out. And so over the years, things have just evolved, processes. We rebranded to PDR Interiors, the Greek key, which is a symbol you see a lot in interior design and in Greek life, is a symbol that we use in our logo. And yeah, now 90% of what we do is fraternity and sorority housing, mostly sorority because they want the pretties. And we do it all across the country. And then we still work with some residential folks as well.
And I had no idea because I transferred to Eastern my junior year of college. So I did not realize the extent of fraternity and sorority houses until Rush Talk on TikTok, Bama Talk, whatever, but whatever it's called. And I was watching those and, like, seeing the designs on the outside of the houses with the balloons and the letters and just it was insane. And I was like, "Man, I really wish I could have done some of that stuff." I would have loved it. I just had no idea that that was a thing.
The balloon arches are a newer thing, and
Okay.
I'm even mesmerized by those. Like, I'll get on there after bid day just to see all the videos of everybody's spread on the front lawn. And then now on my algorithm, there's event companies that do big setups for bid day at these like SEC schools. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are amazing themes. And I'm just enamored with what's going on.
And a lot of it is done, like, in the middle of the night too, so it's
Uh-huh.
there in the morning. I'm like, "I don't know how you do that."
Under the cloak of darkness. So it's like, surprise.
But along the way and before, you got to that 90% in the fraternity and sorority world, you did a lot of residential. And that's really kind of what I wanted to have you on for because obviously I work with couples in all stages of their life. And I feel like I work with couples that are either just graduating college. A lot of times, if they graduate in May, they will be getting married in June or July. So they either leaving a dorm room or leaving an apartment with roommates, or they are going to be in the mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s, and they already own a home, and then they're combining homes, or they're gonna be older in the 50, 60, 70 range, and they have collected stuff all of their lives, and they are combining homes at that point. So I wanna touch on kind of all of those different areas today because I think we have all of those folks listening. Let's start with folks in their early to mid 20s. Let's talk a little bit about, like, I know when I had an apartment in college, like, I had the cheapest, like, can opener you could have. Everything like, the cheap plates were probably Big Lots at that point. So it took me a while to kind of upgrade a lot of that stuff, and you just kind of buy the cheap stuff when you're in college, you share it with everybody. What are some things that maybe you would recommend if they're even going from, like, a fraternity to a sorority house into their own apartment? What are some first things that you would recommend that they do, when combining their homes?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And what I love about like the categories that you've broken people into is I have worked with people as a designer in all of those categories. And the first two categories I have personal experience with. I was someone who got married right after college and since have gotten divorced and started dating someone else and we've combined households. So I can also share some personal experience on those things. But I think what's really important is if you're a young professional, you may have come from a renting situation, maybe you lived at home, maybe you lived on campus, whatever it is, you're probably not going to have a lot of what I'll call heirloom items. And one of the benefits, and I think you may correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we created wedding registries was to set the couple up for success. So things that they may not be able to afford on their own or they may not go out and get for themselves right away, we as supporters of the couple can purchase those things for them. So it's things like dishes, flatware, glasses, maybe it's some smaller pieces of furniture, those types of things. Unique items that reflect their personality, their style, and help create their home together. And it's always interesting when you bring two people together because if they have opposing styles, you really have to figure out how to blend that and who's going to compromise on what items.
I definitely think that registries have changed and progressed over probably the last 10 to 15 years. I know when my friends started getting married, I went into Walmart and they like printed out a sheet for you and you went and you found these items, whereas most of it is online now. And a lot of couples are even just doing like straight Venmo and straight PayPal links now. I do always encourage my couples to do at least one registry. There are always going to be people that want to buy you a tangible gift. My mother is one of those. She wants to wrap that gift and take you that gift no matter what is in that bag. And so I always recommend at least an Amazon or a Macy's, one registry somewhere. And you can have items starting at, $10 to $15 and going up. And I'm not necessarily a proponent for Amazon, but one of the things I like about Amazon's registry is you can do an expensive item, we'll say like the KitchenAid mixer. We'll say it's $350. Well, people can contribute toward that. One person does not have to buy it. One person can pay $100 toward that. Or if like everybody from work wants to chip in, then you just send everybody there to contribute toward that. And I always tell brides that whenever they are working on the registry, to let the groom have a couple items as well. A leaf blower has been a popular one,
That's a good suggestion.
a Yeti cooler, or if there's something that he's always wanted that he would never buy himself, just let him have something fun too. And I talked about like the KitchenAid mixer. Is that something that everybody really needs? What are your thoughts on that? Because that is one thing that is on every registry.
Okay, so it was one thing that I like absolutely coveted and didn't put on my registry. And I don't know why. I don't know if I felt like it was too expensive. I don't know what the answer was. But long story short, I love to cook and to bake. And the KitchenAid is a lifesaver for me because whether I'm mixing up brownies or if I'm using an attachment that will shred chicken for me, whatever makes my life easier in the kitchen. So if you are a couple, either one or both of you likes to cook in the kitchen, then I highly suggest getting it because that is a long-term piece that you will get to use. And you were talking about some people liking to give a tangible gift. I can to this day still tell you if I pull something out that was a wedding gift for me and tell you who gave it to me and like there's some some sentimental attachment there. And I think that's the cool part of a gift. Not to say that the money and the other things
Mhm.
aren't helpful, but there is something sweet about having that product in your home and continuing to use it for years.
And just, I'm going to throw this in there randomly and talking about receiving gifts. Whenever I did a podcast with Danny from First Dance Lexington, she was one of the first brides that I talked to on the podcast. She mentioned that when they were on their honeymoon in Greece, they bought postcards from Greece and wrote everyone a thank you note while they were like on a ship one day, like moving from location to location, wrote everyone thank you notes and then mailed them from Greece back to everyone that bought them a gift. And I was like, that is actually a really good idea. I was like, that is so thoughtful because a lot of times I remember if I bought you a wedding gift and you did not give me a thank you card, your baby gift is determined based on that, just to be honest, because that's how I am. But I do really like that is sentimental that you do think of those people because we have weird memories like that and you associate that with people.
Yeah, totally. And this is a big milestone in your life. And so somebody is being very thoughtful to get you something, whatever that is, and something that you need or want. But I love that postcard idea. I've
Mhm.
never heard of that. And I think that's really special, especially if you're a couple who says, like, okay, no gifts. I have a cousin getting married and she said, no gifts. We just would like money contributions for the honeymoon. And so then that's a way that you could really tie that in to that gift theme. I'm a thank you note stickler, so I expect a thank you note and I send a thank you note, but I've never thought about it affecting your next gift.
Yeah. And so when they are registering for things like flatware, I know they come in like sets of like 16 or 32 or 48. Like, how do you decide how many do you need? Because I feel like 20 years ago, you were required to register for China and they came and you all were supposed to get 8 pieces of everything. Like, what is a realistic number? I know it could be different for everyone, but is there maybe like an average number you should start out with of like plates and cups and stuff?
That is a really good question. I do think it depends on you as the couple and, are you people who eat at home, you're cooking, are you entertaining people a lot? Like, what does that look like? So if I remember right, I think I went with 16 plates, bowls, that type of stuff. And then silverware was probably to match that. But that was because I cooked at home a lot. I liked to have people over, and I'm a dishwasher girl. And so it was like, until the dishwasher's full, we're not washing it. So I never wanted to run out of things, if that makes sense. And so, maybe that's the right number for you, maybe not. I think 4 to 8 is too few. I think then you're going to be constantly turning over dishes, and that's going to be really frustrating. And so I would say like that 12 to 16 range is kind of ideal. And I love that you mentioned China, because I think it is something that has really become obsolete, but we're hanging on to it. And so I think I waited 5 years before I ever even unboxed my china. Sorry to everyone who gave it to me. But when I finally unboxed it, I was like, okay, I'm not going to just save this all the time and pretend like it has to sit in the china cabinets. Then I started pulling it out for holidays. And that's like the one time a year that I was willing to hand wash a dish, because then I got to use the stuff at Thanksgiving and Christmas when I hosted a large family gathering. But I think the china goes back to knowing yourselves personally as well. Are you a fancy dinner party person? Okay, then get it. If not, do not feel forced into it just because maybe your mother or grandmother or someone in your family is saying this is what we do. It doesn't have to be what you do.
And I'm seeing one of the things on registries a lot lately is like Fiesta wear. Because it's good quality, it's cute, it's pretty, you can do different colors in it, um, and you can use it year round. I mean,
Yep.
it doesn't have and it goes in the dishwasher.
Yeah, and you can keep adding to it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if that teal color is not available
Right.
anymore, because not everything is in teal. Maybe you have red, yellow, blue, all of it, right? I have a friend who that's what she did in lieu of china, and she loves it.
And what if we need to, like, leave maybe some couches behind, or they need to go to, like, the dump or the restore whenever we're moving out of apartments? Like, how do you like, furniture shopping can be overwhelming. We already have decision fatigue, and couples are making so many decisions. They're spending so much money for the wedding planning, and it's like, how do we furnish an apartment? How do we furnish a house? Like, where do you start? What are your basic essentials when you are moving into a space for the first time? What do you buy first?
I would probably say a sofa chair, sofa love seat set, something for that living room hangout area where you're going to be watching TV, you'll be entertaining friends. That's where you're going to spend most of your time sitting. Really, the only other place that you'll spend more time is laying in bed. So those are sort of the main areas where I would start. And it doesn't mean you have to start with an expensive piece, but you just need to choose something that is comfortable to both of you. And that can get tricky, because if you have one partner that's very tall and one partner that is short, that looks different because seat depths and back height, all of that. Like, I could really go into the weeds here for you. So you've really got to pay attention to what suits you both. It doesn't mean that every piece in the living room is ideal for each of you. Maybe one of you gets that chair that fits you best. The sofa maybe suits the other one better. You have to make those compromises. But 100% the college furniture needs to be left behind, and you need to start over together. Appropriate furniture for a home for a couple, and it's time to move on. We need some upholstery. It could be Value City, it could be Century Furniture, it could be anything in between, right? But you just have to find something that works well.
I know that I typically something like this, if I'm buying a couch, I'm probably going to spend a month looking online for couches. And then I'm gonna be like, "That's so pretty," but I'm like, "I'm not gonna order it online because I need to sit in it." When it comes to ordering furniture online versus in person, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's dangerous if you're not really familiar with furniture. I'm apprehensive to do it, and I live in that world, but there's some things that you can look at. So let's say you had a chair in college that's like your most comfortable, you love it, but it's time to upgrade it. So some things you can measure are: what was the seat depth? What was the seat height? What was the back height? And you could start to look for furniture pieces that have those same dimensions in those specific areas. You also need to kind of understand what the filling is in the cushion. Are you a firmer cushion person? Do you prefer softer seating, like down? That may be hard to discover on like an older piece of furniture. But you could also go and like test some pieces in showrooms to see what kind of seat you like, and then look for that information when you're online too, right? Because all of those specifications, the measurements, the fill, the fabric, all of that's listed on the item description. And so if you can match those things to pieces that you do love, you have a better chance of success when you order that furniture.
A lot of times, brides will say that they want to, just as an example, maybe take a dress, their mom's dress or grandma's dress, and like turn it into their dress because they think it's going to be less expensive to do it that way. Would it be the same with, and it's not always less expensive, that would be for memories, but if I had a chair from my parents' house and I wanted to have the chair still in great condition, but I just don't like the color of it, if I wanted to have it reupholstered, is that a budget-friendly option, or is it gonna cost more to do that than to buy a new one?
It is likely it will cost the same. Roughly. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. The details that are the factors that make that different is how much your fabric cost, and then what kind of detail is on the chair. Like if there's tufting and tucking and buttons and lots of details, that labor is going to be expensive to get that right. But if it's a simpler style, then yeah, the labor is usually a little bit less expensive. You also have to consider the bones of the furniture. So if the insides are made of cardboard or particle board, it's not worth recovering. But if you have a piece that's maybe from like the 70s, the 80s, something that was made with a solid wood frame, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just those years, but a furniture company that built with a solid wood frame, that is worth recovering, and you will be hard pressed to purchase that same quality level new now because it's going to be super expensive. And so in that regard, you're better off to reupholster. And so sometimes it could just be as simple as taking some pictures and talking to a company that does reupholstery and just saying like, "Hey, here's the details, here's what I know. What would this cost?" And then you can assess to see, is the value there and is that how you want to go?
Because I had, my bedroom suit from when I was a child. Like, I loved them, I did not want to buy new ones, so I had those completely redone.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know that it was any less expensive, but I'm still happy that I have them, so
Yeah, I get it. I bought a pair of swivel chairs from a thrift store, and it came with an ottoman. I think I got all of that for like $200, and then obviously I spent a lot more recovering it, but I've been happy with it. There wasn't sentimental value, but they had great bones and they just had ugly fabric, so I needed that to go away.
So, if a couple is late 20s, 30s, even like 40s, and they have bought their own home, their home is furnished, they are moving in together, potentially one of them has children already. What are some ways that you can combine homes if you do already have the two KitchenAid mixers and you
Mhm.
already have all the nice dishware, you have the leaf blower, you have the coolers, you have a really great life. You're just bringing it together into one location. Do you have any, like, suggestions on that? And I is this probably where it's a really good time to bring in a professional to do that?
It could be. Again, it's going to depend on your dynamic. And, sometimes one of you is naturally just the stronger, has a better design eye or better understanding of how to combine things or how to organize your house. But a lot of times there's some sentimental stuff and there's just some emotion attached to things. And so that's when, yes, bringing in just an outside professional is very helpful because they can look at it objectively and say, here are the things that you should keep and how they work together, and this is why, and then you can get rid of or donate everything else. You have to have some honest conversations and be able to say to your partner, these 5 things are super important to me and are non-negotiables. So can we please make sure they make it into our house together? Or, I don't care about these things. I'll share a personal story. When we moved in together, his comment was, "I know that your furniture is better quality than mine, so you can win there." And then when I was pulling the kitchen together, because you did. You just had duplicates of everything. I just would put it all on the counter, and whatever was the nicer product, the better quality, that's the one that won. The rest went into a bin and it got donated to a local charity, and nobody thought twice about it. We were like, that's fine. Doesn't matter whose it was first.
I like that. And if so, we'll say he is moving into her house, just for example. And he is, I'm just literally making this up. He's a super tidy person and likes things to be neat and organized. And she has decor for every season and all of those things. Is this where maybe it would be a good idea for her to maybe have an organizer come in as well before he moved in and kind of maybe help go through some stuff?
Probably so. That, again, that objective third party eye is going to say, do we really need this? What's the meaning behind this? Do we have it just because we had the space and so we bought it and put it in a tote and now it takes up a closet? Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. You also are going to see a difference when you're combining homes. His home is probably going to feel more masculine. Hers is going to feel more feminine. So how can you balance those things so it doesn't feel like he's moving into a dollhouse or she's moving into a frat house?
And I think too, like, this is just as important, if not more important, well, probably more important than the actual wedding day, or an elopement or whatever. I feel like a lot of couples in this age range may not have the big, huge, lavish wedding, which is totally fine, or they can. But I think having those things, that's where you're at every day. Your home is kind of your sanctuary. My house is a mess right now, and like just sitting here, like looking at the dishes, just even those kind of things, like someone moving into that would literally just, you wanna start off on a good foot.
But
No
you're
matter
right.
when
You're
you move
talking
in.
about a life together, not just the one celebration day. And so it is a good place to invest and really come at it just with eyes wide open and like figure out how you can blend together. And that makes a lot of sense to do it that way.
And this is an area too where I do have couples in this age range that will say we don't want to have a registry. This is a great opportunity to have a honeymoon fund.
Mhm.
Or some couples, if they absolutely do not want that, they will have a place on their website where you can donate to their favorite charity,
Oh,
or
nice.
they will make a donation, themselves and just say that, it's for their wedding. And then kind of the older age range. I am working with a couple right now. They are retired and they are getting married, and they are combining two houses. They have grandchildren. They have all kinds of memories. I would say this is probably going to be the hardest one, because this is really where bringing in the third party on both ends would really help. What are your kind of do you any even basic starting point for them? Does one person move in with the other? Do they both move in, like, condense and move into a smaller place? Like, how do you even navigate that?
I agree with you. I think this is the most challenging category just because of the amount of life lived and the experiences and the stuff and the memories collected. And so it is challenging because you don't want to erase what's occurred, but you also have to figure out how to put all of that in one space, especially if there are children and grandchildren involved, because there's things you're holding on to for them as their family heirlooms. Again, I think probably a third party person, whether it's a designer, organizer, whatever that may be, get them involved. These are money saving measures because you're getting a professional to come in and really give you like advice instead of y'all just trashing things and then having to buy all new, because chances are you're starting with some good things. It's just a matter of figuring out what to keep. As far as your question about does one move in with the other or do they just start over? Again, I think that's where you are in life. Is it something that one of you is relocating to be with the other one? Is it one house is paid off and one isn't? Or is it, okay, we're at a point where we do want to downsize, we're dealing with too much house? You have to think through those things and what suits you the best. Do you feel like you're going to compromise better if you start in a new house that's new to both of you and you're just bringing some of your own things? Or do you feel like, no, it's fine. I can move into their space or they could come into mine and we can sort it out. A lot of the like crux of this conversation is just talking to each other and asking those questions and figuring it out instead of making assumptions about what the other one may want.
My next door neighbor, she actually lived across the street from me. The morning I moved in, literally the first night I stayed here, that next morning it was 8:30 and somebody was knocking on the door. And I'm like, who is at my door?
Wow.
And so I opened the door. She's sitting there with her little cup of coffee and she's like, "Hi, my name is XYZ. I live across the street. I just wanted to come over and introduce myself and welcome you." And she was precious. But I think she was early 80s and she was the sweetest thing. Her yard was the best one on the street. She was out there every single day with her like cane and her walker. Like it was incredible. And one day she came over and she was like, "I just wanted to let you know that you're going to see a for sale sign in a couple of days." And I was like, "Where are you going? You cannot leave. Like you are a staple here." And she was like, "Well, actually, my high school boyfriend and I actually rekindled and I don't know if they were getting married, but she was like, "I am going to move in with him because he has the bigger of the 2 houses." Although her house was lovely and it was more than big enough for 2 people to live in, that she was just like, "He has the bigger house." And I was like, "Completely get that." But I just thought that was precious. And, yeah, that was a fun story.
That is so precious. Again, I said at the beginning, like I've worked with couples at all of these different junctures. I find that sort of this more seasoned group, they're actually a little bit more accommodating to each other. I worked with one couple that he had this giant surfboard and she was like, "I love it. I think it's so cute." It was huge, Sarah. We had to figure out like where to mount it. But if you walked it back to that like late 20s, 30s, 40 range, somebody might be like, absolutely not. But like when you get to that older, you're just like, it's fine. That's what you want. You can have it.
I love that. Now, talking about all these gifts and registry and stuff, do you have a go-to gift that you purchase for people whenever you attend weddings?
Oh, I don't. What I really try to do is look at like what are they asking for? I do have a hard and fast rule. I will not give them something that isn't on the registry. Like if they took the time to say, "Here's what we need," I'm going to make sure that I'm accommodating that and not just like, "Oh, you get this crocheted blanket that I made for you." Like I'm not that kind of gift giver. So I just usually try to keep a certain price range in mind and then focus on what item or items I could give them for that. But I do try to give them something, like I said, that maybe when they pull it out, they're like, "Oh, Liz gave us this," or something that would be very useful for them, not something frivolous, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think we want less stuff every single day. Every time my mother comes to visit, she brings stuff, and I'm like, "Can you please stop bringing stuff?" I can't do stuff.
I know. I'm not a stuff person either. It starts to take over your space, which then becomes mental clutter and it adds a lot of stress. And I'm a purger like every couple months. I probably with the change of the seasons, I usually get a hankering to like, what can I throw out?
I can watch one episode of Hoarders, and I'm good for 6 months. If a couple does want to bring in a third party to kinda help navigate this life change, at what point do you bring in somebody to help you with this scenario that is a professional?
Yes. Okay. So let's say you are building a new house together or you're going to be purchasing a new house together. That kind of has a shorter runway, right? Because you have to be able to get into the space and figure out what can be used. So that's going to be dictated on like when you're closing, when construction is finished, stuff like that. And so you would want to pick somebody out and kind of have them ready to go to know that you can start meeting and looking at the space once you have access to it. Does that make sense? If you were combining households, like one of you's moving in with the other, you could take a longer lead time if that helps so that you have time to purge and get rid of the things you don't need, because that may be giving it to a family member. You may be donating it. That may require a pickup from like Habitat or something if it's a large piece, or you may be trying to sell it. And that takes some time too. And then that way you're not so rushed and you can just slowly but surely move the unnecessary things out the door. I think people tend to wait a little too late and they try to put everything in that house together and they're overwhelmed and then they're stressed. And so the earlier you start, the calmer that experience is going to be and the more prepared you're going to feel. Much like a wedding, right? Like if you're trying to do it super short, you may feel really frazzled if you're trying to do a lot in that period of time. So just think about what your time frame is, what your goals are, and how busy life is. If you need a little bit more time, start earlier.
Several of my couples do work on a new build, and it may be ready right before the wedding, after the wedding, whenever. They're working on a new build. Is there anything that you're seeing now that you're like, "This is the brilliant idea. I'm so glad people are doing this." Anything fun and new? Like, whenever I saw, plugins in the drawer for the first time for, like, straighteners, and I was like, "This is brilliant." Whenever you could, like, sweep the dust up to, like, the little vent on the side, I was like, "This is amazing." Are there any new tricks like that now that you're like, "These are amazing, you should absolutely include this or think about that?"
That is a good question. I feel like a few years ago, I probably would have said the USB plugs, but now, our charging cords are ever changing and those feel a little obsolete. They feel a little dated. You're better off just to have the brick that can change out. So I think maybe I'm saying avoid those. Those aren't worth the extra investment, unless you have one that has all the different possible ports. No, there's not really anything that's coming to mind right now. I was just in a friend's new construction house, so I'm trying to think through some things there. That's a really good question, but no, I think just kind of keeping up with what the trends are on like Houzz and Pinterest and seeing what is out in new construction is always helpful. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but you can always take a gander.
And I am a big fan of my Alexa. She does all kinds of things for me. Is there anything that's not an Alexa right now? Like, for example, that's like a smart that can make your house smart?
Yes, ma'am. So Casa, Kasa,
Okay.
not sponsored. I'm just a big fan. I've used their products in two houses, and you can do light switches and outlets, and it can be either hardwired or the outlets, you can just add something onto it. But it's effectively, you can put your lights on timers. So what happens is all of my exterior lights, they're programmed to come on at dusk. They go off at dawn. I don't have to be worrying about, did I turn it off? Did I leave them on all day? Am I coming home in the dark? Same thing with lamps. Certain lamps and lights in my house, I have it so that at the end of the workday, they come on. At bedtime, they go off. And that just makes the home homier. And again, if you do come in like after a dinner or you're getting home late from the airport or something, you're not coming into a dark house. It's also really helpful if you're traveling and you don't want your house to look empty. And that is just something that's very inexpensive that has been very beneficial. And there are certainly higher end companies that do that, and you can have the whole thing with the iPad, but like on a simpler scale, these you can order from Amazon. You can do them where you want them, but your whole house doesn't have to be done in them. And I'm a huge fan of those.
And I'm pretty basic over here. I'm still on Amazon, so I will have to check that one out. But even just having, the Christmas tree on, like, "Alexa, turn my Christmas tree lights on," like, things like that. It's so simple and it's so silly, but it's not having to climb behind the Christmas tree to turn it on and plug it in and all of those things, like, anything that can make my life easier and better and more convenient for not a lot of money, I'm going to do it.
100% sister. That is where I live. Like what makes things happier and less stressful? I keep 3 Casa plugs in the attic with the Christmas decorations, and they're specific for the tree, the garland, so everything comes on and goes off, and it also is more energy efficient that way, right? You're not just leaving things
Yeah.
burning all of the time. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that.
Kind of wrapping this up, if someone does want to work with a professional, to kind of help them either merge the homes or look into new furniture, or if they're doing a new build, what is kind of a process? What does that cost hourly? How does it work in Lexington?
I would just suggest starting out by just looking up who's available in your area. Look at their websites, see who you feel drawn to, who looks like they jive with your approach to this, who feels comfortable for you to work with. And then usually there'll be like a inquiry page on the site, or you can email them and start the conversation and say like, this is what we're trying to achieve. How would you work with that? Do you help people in this way? And what would that cost? Some firms, organizers and designers will work hourly. Others will say, okay, we can do X, Y, and Z for you for this flat fee. Anything outside of that would be additional. And so it just sort of, again, depends on your needs. And so if you're looking for, oh, I just need a little bit of like a sounding board and consulting on this, you're probably going to go the hourly route. But if you're like, come in, help us, like pick it all out, lay it all out, organize us, you're probably looking at a flat fee. And it will be more expensive, but you're also getting a higher level of service.
Exactly like wedding planning.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we talked about whenever I was on your podcast about how our jobs and lives are very similar. And I would say that this is probably an area where I always tell my couples that you are probably going to spend minimum 25% more on your wedding than you initially thought. Do you think it's probably the same if someone is doing a new build and then they also have to furnish it? Are there any ways that you think that someone could save if they are planning long term, or is it just kind of it is what it is?
It is what it is, but you can choose your own adventure, right? You can decide how much you want to put into it right now. So if it's like, okay, we're going to build this house, we're not ready to like fully furnish it yet. Maybe you pick a room to start in, or maybe you say, okay, we just know we're going to recoup for 6 months, a year, and then we're going to come in and say like, okay, we want someone to help us. Now we've lived in this house, we understand how we use it, because that's something that gets forgotten a lot. It's so easy to want to just like plop everything in place and like create this beautiful Pinterest worthy house, but then you'll be like, oh, that's not really how we use it. But this stuff is new. We can't start over. So it doesn't hurt to give yourself some more time. But yeah, I think if you're going to go at it full bore as soon as you're doing construction, then yeah, it's going to be probably 25% more than you expect because you're trying to get it all done. But there is something to be said for working in phases. And my number one piece of advice is finish one room at a time. Don't get a rug for the living room, a bed in the bedroom, paint the dining room. Pick a room, get it fully done. You'll feel so happy. You'll feel so accomplished. And then you'll be very excited to move on to the next room instead of that shotgun approach where you feel like you're not really making any headway at all.
And this is where having a professional hold your hand and guide you, because I buy a rug for here, I buy something for here. I can't just focus on one room, whereas a professional can make me do that. And then it's halfway done and nothing is ever finished, and I'm never
Right,
happy
yeah.
with it.
There's so much reward and dopamine that you get from walking into that finished room. And like, yes, the next room over may look haggard by comparison, but then that's just your driver to save that money or to get on their schedule and plan that next space.
Liz, thank you so much for joining me today. This was super helpful for me, so I'm hoping it was super helpful for everyone else. If couples want to follow you on social media, where is the best place for them to do that at?
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok, you can find PDR Interiors. I'm also on Instagram, Liz Toombs, Toombs, and I would love to connect with you in either spot.
And then your podcast, what is your podcast called?
Yes, my podcast is called Sorority Chat. It started out as a podcast specifically about Greek housing and really has morphed into more of what I'm all about, which is all the topics adjacent to Greek life, right? Like leadership, entrepreneurship, all these things. So whether you were Greek, you just like looking at that industry, or you want to be one, then you can come over and listen to what we have to say.
It's kind of like mine. It started out as all wedding vendors, and here we are talking about your home.
It's just the natural evolution, right? And so I think it's great.
Wedding planning doesn't have to be overwhelming, and you don't have to do it alone. If you want guidance you can trust, I would love to help. At Simply Love Studio, I offer free wedding consultations where we talk through your vision, your budget, and what steps make the most sense for you. There's no pressure, no obligations, no catches, no gimmicks, just honest advice and support to help you move forward with confidence. You can schedule your free consult anytime at simplylovestudio.com, and I promise you'll walk away with clarity and a plan.